please.
My name is Shad Keahi Warfield.
And Mr. Warfield, would you please raise your hand to take the oath? Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be in the matters before this tribunal shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes,
Mr. Warfield, do you have your written direct testimony in front of you?
I do.
And how many pages is that?
It's about 1 1/3 page.
And as to those statements there, you're now under oath. Are those your statements?
Yes, they are.
And are those statements true and correct to the best of your knowledge?
Yes, it is.
All right. And you've seen this happen. You have up to 10 minutes to summarize your testimony.
Thank you.
All right. Go ahead.
Aloha kako. My name is Shad Keahi Warfield. I am a Keaukaha boy. On this testimony, it states that I was 36 years old when I wrote it. I am actually 37 years old now. I've been living in Keaukaha all my life. I was born and raised in Hilo. My parents, my mother comes from Keaukaha. Our families are the Yopas, the Kaolulos. On my mother's side and on my father's side, although I carry the name Warfield, we represent a lineage of Hawaiian families from Maui, the Big Island, and throughout the state of Hawaii. Growing up, I was only fortunate enough to know one of my grandparents. She was raised in Wai'uha, in the district of Kaupo, Kaipukai, in Maui. She is my connection to a lot of the language, the culture, the stories that I bring to the table and I represent for my family, my personal family, and for all my ancestors that came before that. I am a native Hawaiian. There are many terms for being a Hawaiian. Growing up, I never knew, we never called ourselves Kanaka Maoli. I heard Kanaka, but mostly we just identified with being Hawaiian, that we was Hawaiian. I attended Keaukaha Elementary School. Keaukaha is in the district of Hilo. So after Keaukaha School, we move up to Hilo Intermediate School, where I was in the 7th and 8th grade. And then eventually on to Hilo High. So all public institutions of education. At a young age, as a freshman at Hilo High, I got sick, and I battled cancer for 4 years. So I like to say that I have a 8th grade education, because a lot of that time that I was in the hospital, I was away from being educated, from my peers, sports, prom, all of those things. Somehow I managed to get through, and I'm here today. And I eventually made my way to college, attending UH Manoa, Kapiolani Community College. And then coming home and receiving my bachelor's and master's at UH Hilo, where I'm currently seeking my PhD, which has been a big struggle for me. Going through the gauntlet of academics and education as a Hawaiian boy from Keaukaha. My passion is really to instill a sense of pride in the youth, not only in Keaukaha, but hopefully throughout the state. My work involves bringing that passion and that talent that a lot of our local kids have, and making that talent or passion a career. here in Hawaii. I've been exposed to many different experiences within this time, mostly through my yearning and seeking for education, especially in the area of our culture, our language. And I am no expert. I am just going through the process of solidifying and justifying the work that I do, and just doing what I have to do. But my passion is really returning the sense of aloha that I was exposed to as a child through sports programs in Keaukaha, the Hilo community, and just returning that. So a lot of the programs that we provide now, today, is in that same type of, it shares the same type of qualities. We don't charge our kids to be a part of our programs, and we want to create opportunities and experiences to kind of broaden their own personal horizons. I am a strong advocate for the revitalization of Hawaiian language, Hawaiian culture in all domains. And I am very aware of the history and a lot of the frustrations that many of us deal with. And unfortunately, we end up in, hearings such as this. In my family, it's very important that we understand people and people that we trust. I wasn't brought up to talk about people that I don't know. And if I don't know something, or I don't have nothing nice to say about somebody, I shouldn't say it. And, this process has been hard because it's not easy being in this position where you feel one certain way, and you got one mountain dividing, Hawaiians that feel one way, and me who feel like, there could be one way. I don't agree with everything that is on the mountain. But I do believe that there is a place where there got to be one solution. And I'm not quite sure how that solution looks. But I do know that science cannot exist on Mauna Kea without Native Hawaiian culture, language, expertise, all the people sitting in this room. And Native Hawaiians cannot exist without acknowledging that science, education, all these opportunities that we live today has provided so many positive things to our lives. The history is one thing, but I'm more concerned about how we're going to create our history 200 years down the road. This event will go down in history. But regardless of if TMT isn't built, regardless of if TMT is built, the feeling of, hate and anger will never go away unless two sides can see the benefits of each. And I've seen a lot of cultural experts come up to the stand and speak about Ho'oponopono. And to my understanding, Ho'oponopono is really finding the solution. And sometimes going about finding the solution, well, maybe we've got to start from the beginning again so that everybody is clear on what is taking place So I do acknowledge that, these things exist. And I'm on neither side. But I do know that astronomy has always been on Mauna Kea since I was born. I do have a close connection to the ocean, this island, and Mauna Kea specifically. Growing up as a child and spending time on Mauna Kea in the area of Halepohaku and Ohualoa and Pula'au, Kimole, Kalua Makani, Kanakaleo Nui, Mana Road. The summit, most times we visited the summit to go play snow. But certain times during the bird season, you could hunt and the snow would fall. And so my exposure to Mauna Kea, I do not erect any stone ahus or personal ahus. I do know what they are and I do know what they represent. But Mauna Kea and Hawaii Island is my ahu. And I speak for Hawaii Island. I speak for my family. I speak for the children that I've worked with. And a lot of the participants of PUEO are volunteers that have been part of this circle previous to this whole issue. So we've been in this field of work for some time now. And we're here to make sure that people understand that there is a way and there is a solution. The name PUEO, as I have mentioned previously, because a lot of people are upset that we use that term, PUEO. To be honest, PUEO came before perpetuating unique educational opportunities. And the reason why PUEO was chosen was because of a certain thing that happened. In my family, which I learned through my oldest brother, we have a very close connection to PUEO. Not any type of PUEO, though. Two PUEOs. It seemed two PUEOs at the same time. My grandmother had figurines in her house of these two white PUEOs. And growing up, I never knew what it meant. I didn't know what it meant until my brother told me about it. Prior to convening and becoming perpetuating unique educational opportunities, there was an event that took place at our learning center in Keokaha. As I was coming to open up the learning area in the morning, I like to get up early, and I see Mauna Kea purple. It goes through different phases of coloring in the morning. I opened up the front entrance door to the halau, and there were two PUEOs in the house flying around. All the windows were closed. I couldn't understand how they got in. So I opened up whatever windows. There's a east side entrance and a west side entrance to this facility. The two PUEO didn't want to go up. They encircled the room, and then I remember sitting down and just, I know as a native Hawaiian that when you see these types of what we call Hawaii Lona, they mean certain things, and we got to be aware, and sometimes you don't really understand what it is until a couple of days later, But eventually I watched these two owls, and eventually they flew off. But one flew out of all the entrances to fly out, it flew out the main entrance of the east entrance. And the second owl flew out to the west entrance. So the flight pattern of the PUEO is very significant too. And so I taught on this for a couple of weeks. I actually videotaped some of it. And a lot of the people that is members of our board, some of them I've never met. I've never known Lincoln Ashita. I've never known Newton Chu. I heard of Richard Ha. I know Uncle Pat. I never knew Bill Brown. But for some reason, we all shared the common interest that at the center of all of this was our appeals and our youth. And not only our youth, because there's a lot of local people on Mauna Kea and around Mauna Kea and in our businesses, our local businesses. So respect goes two ways. I am who I am today. And I'm the same person. How I was raised. We were raised in a Christian family, you know. But I don't go to church or every Sunday. My mom is very spiritual. My family is very spiritual. But, my spirituality as an individual comes from being in the atmosphere of Mauna Kea, being in the ocean. I can connect. And, this whole deal of being a cultural practitioner, I don't really like that term because for many of us, you cannot get a degree to be a cultural practitioner. You just got to grow up and live doing things, that you're going to remember and you're going to continue throughout your life. If we're practicing new things, then it's important to say it's new. And respect be given to that. But my practices within me, I practice on the mountain. And like I said, Mauna Kea is the ahu. We're on it right now. Wherever I go on this island, the mountains, all the mountains, it's very significant. All the places are very significant. And I respect everyone.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Warfield. Ms. Pashota?
Okay. Aloha.
Aloha.
Mr. Warfield, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
Mahalo for your testimony. Okay. I just have some questions here. Is it your testimony that you will be harmed or injured if the TMT telescope project were to be built?
Yes.
That you will be harmed?
Yes.
And so your testimony is that, well, you're saying you will be harmed, and then how will you be harmed?
I will be harmed because, like I already said in my testimony,
Yeah.
regardless of if the TMT is there or not, you're still going to have conflict. So I'm being harmed in that we don't know the solution to the construction. So if it's constructed, all of the Native Hawaiians in this room are still going to be upset, and I'm not happy with that. So I'm being harmed as a Native Hawaiian because I'm closer to the Native Hawaiians than I am to TMT, than I am to the university. So that's how I'm being harmed. That the solution is not guarantee happiness for all. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do. And I appreciate. Thank you for actually getting me to see that too. So why are you in this contested case hearing then?
I am in this contested case hearing because I work with kids, Hawaiian kids. And I know of certain individuals, youth, that are interested in astronomy. And there was an instance. I've been working with these kids for a long time. In our program, we try to develop individual strengths and efficacy through cultural identity and self-esteem. So if a kid comes in and tells me that he wants to be the next NFL professional football player, then I got to make sure that I can support him, regardless of the dream. So there was an instance of a child who had astronomy at the center of her, what she desired. 9th grade. 2014, the standoff went on Mauna Kea. She had family that was involved in this process. And she comes up to me a couple weeks later. She says, Kumu, I don't like being an astronomer anymore. And so I said, how come? She said, because my uncle said, not her, her uncle said, that wouldn't be a good idea. She'd be going against her Hawaiian race. And in my mind, I would rather see that student become an astronomer on Mauna Kea than in South America or any other place in the world. Because growing up, not like now, we get two astronomers, Native Hawaiian. Growing up, I never know any Native Hawaiian astronomers, or even had the opportunities to see what those things on the mountain were about, So that's why I'm in the case, because I'm protecting that interest. Not everybody feels the same way. And these are our local Hawaiian kids. We turning off a lot of that interest, that fire that they represent and that they want to pursue. And so I felt, as well as the rest of the individuals of PUEO, that it was important to protect that interest and speak up, because it's one crappy place having everybody hate on you because they don't know you.
So, can your student pursue astronomy if the TMT is not built?
The dream is gone. Her dream of becoming an astronomer is done. She chose a whole different path because, for whatever reasons, I can only do so much, as far as providing the opportunity or experience to kind of enhance their dreams. But it's really up to them what they choose, So after that, it's no longer interested in becoming an astronomer.
I think my question is really, there are other observatories that she could work in, correct?
Yes.
And so it's not the TMT that would make her or not make her an astronomer, correct?
True. But I've learned that, a lot of those telescope studies on the mountain, they're like our cell phones, and technology is getting more advanced, and, there's always that dilemma of upgrade, needed, and if she can do that with the telescopes that is already there, then, I hope so, So I don't know.
Okay, mahalo. I, thank you for your concern for our keiki, and I thank you for you speaking your truth, and I mahalo you for what you just presented here, because it gave me a different perspective also. I want to address a legal question with the judge for a moment, and please forgive me, it's not about you at all, but I do need to mark an objection here. In our last contested case hearing, Your Honor, we had also Hawaii Economic Development, and we objected then also in the same way, and not because of the people involved, but more about the question of standing. And so I do want to say that I think I need to say it for the record, that the contested case hearing is a process to collect information regarding the impacts. It's true, but there also needs to be a contest, meaning that there is some kind of injury in fact, and or potential injury to occur. And so I just want to say that in general, I don't think it rises to that occasion, PUEO's standing in this case. I just want it marked for the record, because as I said, I'm not disputing the individuals, and their reasons for being here are just as genuine as everybody else's, I'm sure. But I do believe that it needs to be weighted at a minimum, because the project is
You know, if
Yeah.
you're going into argument, now is not the time.
Yeah, I just want
I've already made my decision about
PUEO,
who became parties. I followed the rules on that.
Mhm.
I applied them as I saw them.
Yeah.
I gave reasons for them. They're in a written order.
Mhm.
So if you wish to argue how much weight everything should be given, that really has to come in your findings and conclusions.
Yes, then I just have to make the oral objection and move to, I'm not sure what the word is, but either strike or weigh it properly, I guess, because I think they don't have standing because there's no injury in fact. But anyways, that's all.
All right. Thank you, Ms.
Yeah.
Bishota. Mr. Ching?
Hello, Mr. Warfield.
Hello, Mr. Ching.
I have no questions, Your Honor.
Thank you, Mr. Ching. Professor Flores?
Aloha, Mr. Warfield.
Aloha.
I know in your written direct testimony, first I'm just going to make a reference, I guess. Is there exhibit numbers reference these particular testimonies? I know they were all submitted as one, so I'm just requesting if I refer to them, is there a particular exhibit number to this particular testimony or not?
Mr. Ashida, do you wish to address that?
No, there are no separate numbers. All testimonies were submitted under one document, and they're on the website. You're asking if there's separate numbers?
Yeah, exhibit numbers for this.
No. There's, I see you have it in front of you. That's the extent of what was submitted. Does that answer your question? Okay.
There was they were introduced in total. However, they're identified separately by individual within that submission. So that's what I am looking at. Yeah.
Thank you. I just wanted to clarify in case I make specific reference if there was a specific exhibit number to this written direct testimony.
I understand.
Thank you for the clarity. So I know you mentioned that in your written direct testimony and for the past 36 years of your life, and then you stated that you're now 37. Is that correct?
Yes.
And Can I ask you what year you were born?
79.
Okay. And then, do you recall what roughly how old you were when you first went up to Mauna Kea?
We've been going up there since I was younger than 5.
Okay. So it's fair to say that you never experienced Mauna Kea before the telescopes became a dominant feature in the summit. Is that correct?
Yes.
Thank you. I know you just in your opening summary you mentioned, to paraphrase it, because I'm not sure if I got the exact wording, but you stated to the effect that you don't, quote, you don't agree with everything on the mountain, end of quote. Is that what you stated?
I think that's pretty close.
And so what don't you agree with what's on the Mauna Kea?
As I mentioned, growing up, we lack those opportunities to understand what is astronomy on Mauna Kea. You know, really getting inside and understanding what that is. And I strongly believe that, you know, we got to get better at doing that. Sharing with the local community what is it that they do, you know, and bring it down to terms where people in Keaukaha can understand it and experience it. And the whole island. I'm not just speaking for Keaukaha, but that's where I'm from.
Okay. And then to elaborate further on that, so what else is there that's on Mauna Kea that you don't agree with?
I don't agree with being born in 79. I only know Mauna Kea with the observatories on the mountain. I like to find solutions where astronomy on Mauna Kea can be less visible. And how you do that, I do not know. You know, more culturally sensitive to the practices that you folks share. But really looking into the design and development of technology so that it does not interfere with, you know, the practices that you folks are implementing today.
Okay, thank you. So wouldn't the proposed construction of the TMT make astronomy more visible on Mauna Kea than it is now?
I think to some extent, yes.
Okay, thank you. And then I know in your testimony, this is on the first page and the first paragraph of your testimony, you go on to say that Mauna Kea and Mauna Loa have always been in a clear view to the west of my home located in the Keaukaha community. Is that correctly stated?
Yes.
And so if there was the TMT telescope built right adjacent to your home on the west of your home, would it cause a visual impact to see Mauna Kea and Mauna Loa?
If the TMT was built on Mauna Kea where I could see it?
No, it was built in your community on the west, in a vicinity to the west of your home. Would it cause a visual impact to see Mauna Kea and Mauna Loa?
I think it would.
Okay. I was just trying to eliminate this buzzing. I think it's the wire. Okay. In a third paragraph of your written testimony, somewhat near the end of that third paragraph, you state that I strongly support astronomy on the summit of Mauna Kea as long as astronomy can commit to an educational outreach partnership. And you list several things that can be implemented. Is that what you stated there?
Yes, it is.
So if astronomy can no longer commit to an educational outreach partnership, would you still support it?
Yes,
And why so?
because I believe that astronomy is important to a lot of the, not only technology, but understanding of the universe. I believe all fields of education are just as important.
Okay, thank you. And so you also, I know you mentioned there was an example of a child that was interested in astronomy. But do you know why, after some 40 years of astronomy development on Mauna Kea, that there's only 2 astronomers, native Hawaiian astronomers?
I do have a clue as to why, and I believe it's because the opportunities, becoming an astronomer, from what I have learned, is very difficult. And I can only speak from my own personal experiences coming up through public education, that astronomy wasn't prevalent in elementary school, in intermediate school. High school, well, I don't know too much about that. But I believe that if it was available and you did have access to that type of education, you would see more native Hawaiian astronomers.
And so why do you think we already have existing 13 telescopes on Mauna Kea? Why weren't those education opportunities provided so that there's more native Hawaiian astronomers then?
I don't know.
Okay. Have you been to the area of the proposed TMT project site before?
I have.
You haven't?
I have.
Oh, you have. How many times have you been there?
I'd say 10, 12 times.
Have you been to any of the cultural sites in the vicinity of the proposed TMT project?
Are you referencing the ahus, the new ahus that was on the road?
Oh, yeah. Okay, so the new ahus, you would say. I mean, the recent ahus, I don't say new, but the recent ahus created.
I was aware of it when we went up for the trip, but the experiences that I'm telling you about, it dates back to in the 90s and 2000s.
And then what were you doing in that period of time?
I was helping my brother, who was a steel contractor, and he had contract work in Subaru.
And what kind of work was he doing on Subaru?
Steel construction and maintenance of the rollers that moves the mirrors. I don't exactly know what it was, but it was mostly railings and anything to do with welding and structural steel.
So he was involved with the construction of Subaru. Is that
Not the construction, the maintenance.
the maintenance afterwards?
Yeah.
After it was built.
Yeah.
Okay. And so, have you been to any early Hawaiian cultural sites in the Northern Plateau, like other ahus that further?
I haven't been to the ahus, but I have been to the Ads Quarry as a child. I have been to Lake Waiau. I recall seeing stones in mounds, but not in the typical fashion that I see today.
Okay.
And lower elevation as well on Mauna Kea.
Great. Okay, and then I guess I just have one last question. So is it fair to say that if the TMT project wasn't brought to Mauna Kea, that there wouldn't be this type of conflict you referred to?
No, I don't think that's safe to say, because the TMT is just the first of what's to come. And I do believe that there's more to come. after this one is, it's just with time. And I don't feel safe saying that, this is the end.
And you mean the end, when you say more to come, that you believe that there might be more telescopes to come after this?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Warfield, for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Flores. Mr. Kayama?
Aloha, Mr. Warfield.
Hello.
It's nice to meet you. Thank you for your olelo today. I've never met you. And I don't know who you were until you told me your story. And thank you. I appreciate your story.
Thank you.
I think it's a good story for all Kanaka. I appreciate the fact that you've taken a leadership role for our young Kanaka children as well. So mahalo for that.
Mahalo.
I'm going to ask you a couple of questions. Yeah, why don't I just start? I was looking in, based on your direct testimony, what you testified to, I know you have some programs that you said intended to instill a sense of pride to the Keiki, yes?
Yes.
And you talked about sports programs?
Sports programs like volleyball, football, those types of things growing up.
Okay. Other programs? Are there other programs in your organization that you do as far as for the Keiki?
The sports programs are through, as growing up,
Okay.
previous to me getting involved, but our programs mostly center around the Hawaiian canoe, voyaging, paddling, ocean recreation activities, those types of things.
So it's fair to say a lot of your keiki and your children either call you coach or kumu then, huh?
Yeah, majority of the time, yes.
Okay, thank you. And so, so in your sports program, do you actually coach kids too and like organize activities?
I do.
Okay, cool. I appreciate that because I think that's something we all should do for our Kanaka. And this sense of pride that you have when you do this kinds of sports program and coaching, explain to me a little bit about what that sense is you feel from them when you do this.
A lot of the reason why I am involved in these programs is because it provides a safe haven for a lot of our local youth. Growing up, it's really easy to get caught in the wrong crowd, and it's an outlet to build self-esteem. Without self-esteem and cultural identity, which is one other area that we really focus on, they're lacking in many ways the basic home values that a lot of us grew up with. Many families are torn apart, single-family households. Many of them live with kupuna, uncles, aunties, foster homes. So these outlets, not only through our program, but whatever is in existence in Hilo or throughout Hawaii Island is very important for the students to grow and experience new things. And there's so many outreach programs happening, valuable outreach programs. So anytime you can establish or create these opportunities for the students and families to come together and learn, it's really valuable.
Yes. And I know I'm saying this based on my own experience, but I see that as a kuleana of yours. Is that correct?
Yes.
And now I'm connecting it to the TMT, of course. Is it fair to say that you're not going to relinquish this kuleana whether the TMT is built or not?
No.
That's right. Because that's how I look at it from my experience as well. Okay, thank you. You talked about studying or trying to obtain a PhD.
Yes.
What area?
This is in Hawaiian language revitalization and Hawaiian studies.
Okay, cool. I appreciate that and thank you. I appreciate that you're trying to. I always think it's great to have more smart Kanaka that we can have. So, mahalo.
Thank you.
I want to ask you now, sir, and I'll give you a heads up. I think I'm going to ask you what I think are some hard questions.
Okay.
And I mean no disrespect, but I think these are some questions that I think because I don't know you, I think needs to be asked so I can get the answer to some of these.
I understand.
Your organization is the acronym for that is KOYD, right? Keaukaha or Keaukaha Youth One Development.
That's one of the organizations, Keaukaha on a Youth Development, yes.
Okay, and I think the acronym, I'm sorry, is actually KYOD, is that correct?
KOYD.
Oh, okay, sorry about that. The property that you have the organization on, is that property that's owned by KYOD or is that property that you lease?
That's property that we lease
Okay,
through Makanakai.
okay. And do you know who the owners of Makanakai is?
The owners of Makanakai is made up of the families of Stanley Roerick, Jan Roerick, and their family members.
Okay, thank you. Did you know that Mr. Roerick is a current Board of Land and Board of Land and Natural Resources Director?
Yes,
And did you know that he may be voting on whether this CDUA is approved or not?
yes.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate your honesty on that. How long have you had your lease, or when I say your, I mean your organization's lease with Makanakai?
I think we began that lease in I cannot really tell you. I can't remember the date we began the lease.
I saw one date, and I might be incorrect, but it looked like somewhere around November of 2013. That sound about correct?
We've been there for a long time, previously as the school, Kaumekikaio Charter School, and then eventually moved over to KOYD. But I want to say the COID's been up since around 2011,
Okay.
around that area. I got to check.
Okay, and that organization has been at that location since around
Yes.
2011?
Yes.
Okay. So
Previous.
it might be fair to say that the lease may have been existing since around 2011.
Yeah.
Thank you. I also saw some information. I want to ask you if you know, at some point was Mrs. Roerick, Stanley Roerick's wife, a member of KYOD?
Yes, she was.
Okay. All righty. I think, as I understand it, she was one of the executive directors. Is that correct?
Yes, she was.
Thank you, sir. Besides your work with the children, do you have any other business interests that you are involved in or associated with personally?
I'm involved in a lot of different nonprofit organizations.
Okay.
But could you ask the question again? If I'm interested in other business ventures or?
Yeah, it was a general question. I wanted to know if there are other businesses that you are involved or associated with, other business ventures.
No, I wouldn't call it business, but mostly just securing my education and continuing with the programs, building the capacity in the programs that we currently have.
Are you currently in any business venture or entity that is associated with Mauna Kea?
Entity. We've been in partnership with Imiloa, Yeichilo,
And when you say we, if I may ask, who is the we that you're referring to?
KOID.
Okay. Okay, so it's still that same children's organization.
Yeah.
Okay. Also, I think I have some information, so again, forgive me if I ask. Are you aware, or do you know whether Mr. and Mrs. Roerick or Makanakai have received any tax breaks as a result of their release arrangement with KYOD?
I'm sure they have.
Okay. Would it be, would you know if I told you the sum of nearly $80,000 for a particular year was a benefit that was received by Mr. and Mrs. Makanakai?
I never knew the exact amounts, but that's about, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
For the long
Again,
time.
I appreciate your honesty on these answers to the questions. One final thing, I also thought I saw that KYOD receives some funding from the TMT think tank. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. How long has how long has that organization been receiving funding?
I think 2 years now. This is our second year.
Okay. Thank you again, Mr. Warfield. Let me just express to you, coming from a family where my brother-in-law is one of the supporters of TMT, he's one of those astronomers, that we can have a great conflict in families, but still have great love for each other. So we are very much opposed to each other on this issue, but when it comes to family, we still love each other. So,
Same here.
okay. Mahalo nui.
Aloha.
Thank you, Mr. Kayama. Mr. Ferguson?
Hello, Mr. Warfield.
Hello, Mr. Ferguson.
I want to just clarify something right off the bat. I have nothing personal against you. My position of objection for you folks has to do with standing in a contested case. And as long as it's noted, I guess that's how we have to go by it.
I understand.
And so I have a few questions for you. In your written direct, you have a statement on your, let me see, it's your, it's like third paragraph where you say, I strongly support astronomy on the summit of Mauna Kea as long as astronomy can commit to an educational outreach partnership through implementing Hawaiian language, culture, and practice while strengthening science, mathematics, and problem solving. Is that pretty much correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So, you know there's 13 telescopes up there presently.
Yes.
Okay. Do you know how much support those telescopes have offered to the community as far as outreach work goes? Or is this kind of a new feature that's coming up?
I believe it's gotten more popular since the issues with TMT and but you know, like I mentioned earlier, growing up, not as much.
Okay. I enjoyed your story about the PUEO. My family is also, Amakua, my family is also PUEO. Are you aware there's an organization out of Alaska that had to do with the Alaskan Claims Commission that was also named PUEO? Were you aware that there's an organization also known as PUEO with the same perpetuating unique educational opportunities out of Alaska?
I did not know.
Okay. That was also implemented through like Hawaiian Homes. I was just wondering if you knew the relationship of that.
No.
So, as a Hawaiian gentleman, I would think that you would think that a person's word is supposed to be good. Would that be fair to say?
Yes.
Okay. And so the thought that part of the conditions for the astronomy to take place on Mauna Kea had to do with a certain time when it was going to be finalized, when like 2033 is the end of the lease agreement. And so knowing that, and you know, you had mentioned that, I don't know if you know this to be a fact or you're just suggesting it, that after the 30-meter telescope, there's likely to be more. Was that your statement?
Yes, that's my statement.
Okay. And so, Are you aware of how much time it's going to take to build a 30-meter telescope?
No.
Okay. The reason I'm asking you is because after the 10 or 12 years of time it takes for building, and I'm talking about 8 to 10 hours a day at least is what they claim it's going to be taking them. It only will have a shelf life of like 5 years. But it also says that they are also trying to rearrange the lease agreement that they had. I myself have a hard time believing somebody who constantly changes his deadline mark to suit himself, and then who calls you the guy who doesn't want to cooperate, the bad guy, like it's been said many times that Hawaiians are against the science of astronomy or something like that. And I think that would be a kind of a foolish thought. I don't know any Hawaiians that are against astronomy as a science. I think there's a lot of very good support to say that we're a little tired of how much has gone up on the mountain, and this idea that there's never an end, and including your idea now that you suggested that after the 30-meter telescope, there's likely to be more. And I also see that as a potential too. And I guess that's probably why we're so strongly objecting to it now, because this is like the floodgate. By the way, I appreciated your knowledge of the different areas up on Mauna Kea, like Pulau and Kimoli and Kanakalenui. You had to have been there to know those places, so that's nice to know.
Yep.
And you say right now that you folks are benefiting from the Think program?
Yes, we are, because as a nonprofit, none of the money comes out of our pocket, so a lot of it is through grant writing, and Hawaii Community Foundation offers that grant for that program.
So in your type of community work, you talk about building positive self-esteem and cultural identity. Do you find that this particular juncture of this division in the community about the 30-meter telescope, does that cause you concern with strengthening positive self-esteem?
Yes, it does.
It does. It does me too. You know, I'm one of the very strange guys from Waimea. I was actually a kind of a throwaway kid that was self-educated, actually. But I am I very strongly believe in trying to support anything that will build up the self-esteem and to strengthen the vision of how far you can possibly go in this world, because Hawaii is such a small place. And these opportunities can be everywhere. And just like they can be anywhere, astronomy can be anywhere too. And the science of astronomy and the things that they talk about in that science can be done anywhere too. It doesn't have to be done on Mauna Kea. And
Your Honor, I'm going to object at this point that no question is being asked of this witness. So I'd ask that the court direct Mr. Ferguson to either ask a question or move on. Thank you.
Mr. Ferguson?
yes, I'll move on. I'll move on.
Thank you.
So in your outreach work, You know, what you say, well, strengthening science, mathematics, and problem solving, do you folks have any particular programs that you offer that strengthen those things?
Yes, we do.
Could you give me an example?
Sure. One of our main projects right now is working with the voyaging canoe, the Hokualakai. Previous to the Hokualakai, a lot of our canoes are koa canoes. So understanding water lining of these vessels is math, is science, the design of these canoes. But we don't use those terms around the kids. We just put them to work, and hopefully they pick up on these things because they enjoy it. If I say it's science, it's technology, it's math, you turn them off right away. But if you just get involved with the work, then they begin to see that it's a lot of what they're talking about at school, and geometry and working with tools and problem solving. So, and in a very cultural context as well. It's not in the classroom, four walls. It's on the water's edge. It's in one halau. You're working on one canoe that you're going to paddle. So you take a lot of pride, and I believe that's where the self-esteem comes and the cultural identity as well.
Thank you. I agree with you. I was fortunate enough to be part of Nakale Wa'amoko Keahi. I think that's all I have for you. Thank you very much, Mr.
Thank you, Mr. Ferguson.
Thank you, Mr. Ferguson. Ms. Kihoi? No questions? I think I saw Mr. Kanaile. Good afternoon. Do you have any questions, cross-examination for Mr. Warfield? No questions? Okay. Mr. Vicente?
Your Honor, can I move kind of last if I got to get into the swing of things?
Well,
Oh, before then.
okay.
Thank you.
I'll ask you again, but it's probably going to be 5 minutes from now. All right, Mr. Vicente?
Roy Vicente, good afternoon.
Hello.
You say you live in Keahi.
Yes,
Is it designated Hawaiian homelands?
I believe so.
Do you understand the Hawaiian Homes Commission Act of 1920?
To some extent.
Do you understand the Admission Act, 1.8 million acres was designated Hawaiian homelands to the state of Hawaii?
Yes.
Are you aware that it's dwindled down to less than 200,000 acres, I think, now?
Yes.
Are you aware that the Hawaiian Homes Commission Act is based on the Northwest Ordinance of 1787?
Yes.
You know, the Indians, they talked about in the Northwest Ordinance, once they were removed off the land, that was it. They wasn't going back on. Mm-hmm. Meaning they used force against them. Are you aware of that?
Yes.
Okay. I have no more questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vicente. Mrs. Freitas?
Aloha, Cindy Freitas. Aloha.
Aloha.
You guys do grant writing because you're a 501(c)(3), that's correct?
That's correct.
And in this grant writing, you guys receive think program, think funds?
The nonprofit that you're referring to, is this the COID or the PUEO nonprofit?
I don't know which one.
They're separate. They're separate entities.
So which one did you guys receive the think?
Through COID, Keahi Warfield Youth Development.
Is there any restriction to that grant that you receive or obligations?
There are obligations.
And what is the obligations?
The obligations is to show the impact that you have on the students, to keep budget, of your expenses. How the grants work is you provide a plan on what you're going to provide and how that impacts, Aloha Aina is one of the questions. They have a list of questions, maybe about 12 questions that you answer. And whatever you put in those questions is what you need to fulfill.
Does any of this question has anything to do with the TMT?
No, it doesn't, but it does refer to STEM education, science,
STEM?
technology, engineering, and mathematics.
You had mentioned that a student of yours got discouraged from astronomy because her family members was opposing that. Is that what you said?
Yes.
What did you do to what did you do in return for her in telling her? Did you try to change the situation around for her?
Yes.
In what way?
By collaborating with the existing telescopes on the Mauna. For example, the Subaru, the Keck observatories, and providing, outreach activity where they get to go into the telescopes and really see what it's about, but it didn't change your mind.
Okay. In your written testimony, I noticed you have that address on the top. Is that coming from the organization 67, I don't know what the street?
The address that is listed on the top is the address of the COID address. That's where my office is located.
Okay. You had mentioned in your written testimony, first page, third paragraph, there are many concerns to the future of Hawaii and its natural resources. What do you mean by its natural resources?
Anything that is natural.
In what way?
The mountain, the rivers, the water. Anything that is our natural environment.
Okay, so concern can be desecration?
Yes.
Obstruction?
Sure.
Would that apply to Mauna Kea?
Yes.
Thank you. What kind of cultural values that you teach to the students?
Mm-hmm. So what types?
Yeah, what kind of cultural values, specifically culture?
Specifically culture. I teach them about the kukui. Kukui and the competence that an individual must carry in whatever he or she does. I teach them about ohia and the compatibility that is attribute of being the pioneer, mea kanu on the lava field. And that students need to be compatible in order to make it in today's world. I teach them koa. Our canoes is koa. The mountain has lots of koa, but it speaks to the courage and the fearlessness that you got to have in order to follow your dreams. Sometimes you got to go against certain things that, might not sit well with other people, but only you will know that it's proper or right. I teach them skills like the iei. The iei is one of the oldest plants in one forest. So their commitment, whatever they go into, you got to commit, you got to give it your 100%.
Okay. Do you also teach them about the natural resources and the environment as well?
These things that I've mentioned are all part of the environment and the natural resources. So yes, in the ocean and on the land.
How to take care of it,
Yes.
not to damage it,
Yes.
things like that?
Yes.
Thank you. Did you have any other students express their desire for astronomy in your years of teaching?
I have actually, yes.
And what was the outcome of that?
I remember when I was teaching at Ka'ubeki Ka'eo Public Charter School in Keokaha. And there were a few students prior to the TMT issues and things. I remember them saying astronomy was an area of interest. As far as what I provided for them, I didn't know anybody in the astronomy community that I could quickly connect them to or provide mentoring or experiences where you could enhance that interest. So, you know, I think I could have done a better job, but I didn't have the resources to do so.
Okay. What difficulties TMT from the current 13 observatories as far as providing your keikis educational opportunities?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that question one more time?
What kind of difficulties from the TMT from the current 13 observatories as far as providing your keikis educational opportunities?
What kind of difficulties we face
With the TMT
with the TMT?
compared to the current 13?
I hope I understand your question correctly. What type of difficulties that the
Yes.
TMT is, you know? Well, a lot of the students that I service, they don't want the TMT. A lot of the families that I service, they don't want it. But the kids are still coming to the program, you know? So there are difficulties where they feel like, oh, he's going to try and influence me into becoming an astronomer. No, that's not what I'm trying to do. What I'm trying to do is make them see and understand two sides of the issue, that it is an issue important to us as Native Hawaiians, and it's also an important issue for the furtherance of science and technology, and, you know, so it's not an easy place.
Okay. And thank you for your time. Mahalo.
Mahalo.
Thank you, Mrs. Freitas. Mr. Freitas? Okay, let's pass on him for the moment. Mr. Kanaili, are you ready? No questions? Mr. Freitas?
Sorry, apologize. First of all, I'd like to congratulate you on all your accomplishments. You're a Native Hawaiian and make me proud. And all what you do for the children of Keiki Okaina. and for others, not just our native Hawaiians. I commend you on that. You as a native Hawaiian, you give me so much pride. And just knowing that your efforts in educating our children for the future gives me a lot of hope that we'll be able to continue our efforts as our kupuna did in their most struggling times. Today we try to struggle as Native Hawaiians, and we are struggling to hang on to our culture and our identity. And with that said, I aloha you, my para.
Malo, malo.
And I would like to, with all due respect, I would like to join in with Ms. Picoro as far as the testimony being either stricken from the record or I stand with them on that position. But I still aloha you, my para.
I understand. Mahalo.
Okay, aloha.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Manat and Mr. Shinyama. Mr. Ashida, redirect.
Yes, just two questions, Your Honor. Mr. Warfield, I think Ms. Freitas cleared this up, but I just wanted to make sure it's on the record. The Think Fund monies or the grants, COID applies for those, correct?
Correct.
Not PUEO.
No, not PUEO.
All right. And the second question, with respect to the decision of whether the Think Fund monies are given to COID, that decision is made by the Hawaii Community Foundation. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Not the TMT, correct?
No.
All right. Thank you. Nothing further, Your Honor.
Mr. Warfield, thank you very much for your patience. You're excused.
Thank you.